Welcome, everyone. We're back again for Shakti Speaks. This week, we are going to be talking about the ego, the possibility of transcending the ego, talking about Wetiko, the monster mind, the collective consciousness, and all kinds of topics like this. And once again, it's going to be me, Megan Buchman, drawing on Shakti Cabral's wisdom and experience. And I'm going to be asking her questions about this topic, which she knows a whole lot about. And I think let's just kick it off with a very, very basic one, which is what is the ego and where does it come from?
Okay, so the ego is something that's actually there to help us. It's how we remember learned behavior, what works and what doesn't. Um, the issues start arising when we start identifying with it. So, when I did this when I was four, I got told off. I felt embarrassed, so I'm not going to do that again, and I'm not allowed to do this anymore. So now I stop. Now I stop expressing myself in some way, shape, or form. Maybe I danced in a funny way at school, and everybody laughed at me because it was a funny dance, but I didn't understand that it was a funny dance to them. So I think I can't dance. So then I believe that I can't dance. You know, or maybe I express myself in a certain way and get a lot of love for it. So then I start learning that if I do this, that brings me love. If I cry a lot, I get love. And if so, we start identifying with certain behavioral patterns that we think are helping us in some way, shape, or form, and that usually starts at a very young age, where we're taking out of our natural expression, and we will do anything that we can to fit into the environment that we're in. So often we try to be like it, and as we grow older, we start, maybe some of us start to realize that we didn't come here to fit in, but most of the time that's what happens. We try to fit in, we try to be like be like everybody else, do what everyone else does, and we develop a certain identity that looks the same, does the same, and we don't question it, right? Then, so the ego is a framework of beliefs that essentially is there to help us and also to help us to make healthy choices. So, okay, that didn't work when you did it like that. So do it differently. Maybe try doing it this way. But we're not taught that. It's just, well, that didn't work, so don't do it. And it brought you that. So run away from it.
Mhm.
Or yeah, or identify with it because it that having behaving in this certain way, I see other people get the love that they need, so maybe I might get it that way too. Right. And then as we grow older, we are contributing to it through our own energy, because where thought goes, that's where your energy goes. So you start believing in something, and a belief is something that you invest energy into. Okay, it's very different to awareness. Awareness is being aware of everything and being okay with it, and having like 360 vision of everything and being all right with it. But when a belief is like, you have a certain belief in something, you invest energy into it, and you keep investing energy into it. Now, the thing is, we're born creators. So we have these brains that chug out thoughts. And if you could see them, the nature of those thoughts can be like inspirational and light and bright. You might have seen in like the old-fashioned cartoons when someone would have an idea and a little light bulb would go off above their head. Well, literally, if you could see it, little sparks go off above and around people's heads when they're having these kinds of thoughts. Now, when someone has a thought that's heavy, that doesn't necessarily support their highest and greatest good, it can be like darkish. It can be like smoke, or it can be like a dark spark or a dark heavy energy, right? And that's dense. It doesn't travel and vibrate up. It's dense and it sits around us, like almost like a cage. So we start chugging out thoughts that are self-defeating, that are limiting, that are out of date. They might not even necessarily be like harmful to us at the time when we had them, but we've grown since, and those thoughts can be constricting. And as our energy is expanding, those thoughts are keeping us in, right? So those thoughts are created by us, and we are creating consciousness. So those thoughts are conscious. And the more we feed them, the more we identify with them, the stronger they become. And instead of realizing that that's what that is, we a lot of the time step into it and think that that's what I am, right? And then what happens when you do that is it wants to stay alive because it's conscious, right? So it's like you've created like an entity,
Yes.
right? It's
Created a monster,
yours.
literally.
Yeah, like the monster mind, right? And it belongs to you, right? You're its creator, therefore you're its master. But most people don't realize that. They just identify with it and they become it. They believe in it, right? So when that happens, um, what usually occurs is that it starts to want your attention. Like the ego wants three main things, and that's it wants your attention, it wants to keep you in its comfort zone, and it wants to control you because then it can survive, it can live, and it can thrive, right? So it will always draw your attention to, oh yeah, but what about, if you go out and everyone might laugh at you when you dance, you
Mm.
know, or well, the only way you're going to get attention, if someone says something to you that you don't really like is like by crying or like I, you might have a thought in your head that restricts your natural growth. Well, I'm not going to do that because it's the unknown. I don't want to go into the unknown because it scares me. I'm fearful. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
just going to stay here in my comfort zone. And this is how the ego can control you. But when you start doing your inner work and you start paying more attention to your inner freedom and empowerment and expanding your awareness and maybe working with your soul, you're going to have a growth period that's you're going to start feeling that restriction. You're going to start feeling that there's got to be more to life. There's got to be something outside of this, and I feel trapped. And that's when your ego will start to panic and it will start to press all of your buttons because it knows where all your weak points are because you created it, right? So it will do that to stay alive. The key is to know what's going on and not give it what it wants. And then you start working with transforming,
Mm-hmm.
aspects of the ego and, transforming it into light because you created it and you're the master of it. You can actually bring it into a higher state of consciousness, and into a higher state of awareness.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. But what happens with that as well is that the ego consciousness is a certain vibration. By nature, it will attract similar energies and it connects to the collective consciousness of everyone else that's chugging out the same kind of
Mm.
thoughts. Maybe it's in cities, maybe it's road rage, maybe it's being late for work, maybe it's stress, maybe it's certain topics that you see and you hear on media that trigger certain feelings that everyone is having, and it creates what I call like ego,
All
right?
right.
It's the collective consciousness of the ego. Um, there's another name for it, which in ancient tribal law they see it as like a mental virus, and it's known as Wetiko, like the virus of the mind virus that controls and manipulates and moves from one person to another. Almost as like a virus. It's like
It's
it can be
contagious.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. There's a guy, Paul Levy, and he's written like Dispelling Wetiko and also like Quantum revelations. He's written books on it. It's fascinating, and yeah, but it's something that we all have.
Wow, that was a mind-bending explanation. Thank you. It was as you were speaking, I was just recognizing all the times in my own life where Wetiko or the ego has been so convincing. And it's interesting how you say, because it's of your own creation, it knows particularly what's going to impact you. It keeps recreating and shape shifting to get, to custom to you, right? Did I understand it correctly? That it's
Yeah,
not like, okay, you've understood it once, or this is somebody else's version of ego. Your particular ego is going to morph into whatever your Achilles heel is, in a sense. Is that
yeah,
more or less how it works?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And everybody has one. Everybody
Everybody
has one.
has one.
Key is to keep updating it,
Yeah.
like keep updating, like keep transforming it. You're the creator of your own ego, so you're the master of it. It listens to you, actually.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't do what it wants. It needs to adapt to what we want, and that's because the ego can keep you in rigidity. It can keep you in an environment where you have to do things a certain way. And it takes the love out of things. It takes the joy out of things. It takes the mystery out of things. You have to control your environment and you know where you're going, and it's like when all in reality, what you want to be doing is creating the path as you walk it. Like you create it as you go along. It's not about following someone else's. That's theirs. But that's what everybody does, and it keeps you confined
Mm-hmm.
into a certain way of being. As helpful as it can be, there comes a point where you need to update it, and you need to transform it into something that inspires you, that supports where you're going, you know. So there's different sides to the ego as well. You've got like the dark feminine and the dark masculine, right? And then you've got the divine feminine and the divine masculine. It's a whole another arena and another way of looking at the ego.
Mm-hmm. So before we potentially get into the feminine, masculine, which I think is such a massive topic, which I have endless questions about, I want to go back to something you said a little bit earlier about it being a collective thing, and then I think I asked if it's contagious. So my question is, I mean, contagious, let's say. If it's a if you know if we're saying it's Wetiko and it's a virus, and this is sort of the Native American understanding of it, that it's this mind virus that people catch, are the denser egoic thoughts equally contagious to, or for, or to the lighter, more, for lack of a better word, positive thoughts? Do they have the same potential impact, or does the one, have more, carry more weight, or the denser ones attract more? Or how does that work? And then I guess by implication also, what does that mean about your personal responsibility to the collective, and your ego and its impact on the collective?
So it's very much what you pay attention to, and how much energy you put into something, how often you think about certain things, and how often you let them control you and manipulate you and steer you into doing things that don't necessarily feel good to you. But because your feelings are your guide, and your feelings are the things, and you learn through your emotions, and your feelings guide you. So if what you feel isn't doesn't feel great to you, you're just going to attract more of that if you keep doing it. Because what you think you create, what you feel you attract, and what you do you become. So those 3 pointers are they're really valuable to use in life. What you think you create. Like, what are you paying attention to? What are you thinking? And are those thoughts making you feel good?
Mm-hmm.
Because if they're not, change them. But if you keep having those thoughts, you're going to attract more of that stuff into your life. So you start attracting, like, the opportunities of the type of the energy of the thoughts that you're having and the feelings that you're having. You'll be surrounded by people that have the same thing, and they're all in agreement that, this is terrible and that needs to stop and
Mm.
whatever it is. But that will become your reality, and then you'll be living it, and that's what you're doing. So it depends what you pay attention to. If you pay attention to things that inspire you, and you pay attention to doing the things that you love, and you pay attention to growth and solution-based thinking, then by nature, you're going to gravitate towards that, and you're going to start to be around people that inspire you. Now, if you've not done any work on transforming your ego, those people that inspire you might trigger you as well.
Mm-hmm.
They might make you feel bad about yourself because they're so brilliant and you're not,
Yeah.
in your mind, so but that's an opportunity to work on it and use it to your advantage and transform it and become magnificent and overcome it so it doesn't bother you anymore. So you're not a vibrational match to that anymore. And those feelings have transformed inside of yourself based on your awareness. If you've come out of the belief and into awareness and everything, actually, you can go into gratitude then. And it sounds very simple, but it's a work in progress because this starts at a very early age, as I said, and sometimes it's also passed down through the ancestry, because our human bodies are bundles of DNA that through which we can access the wisdom of the ages, but also all the unresolved stuff of our ancestors, which don't even belong to us.
Yeah.
So, but you can play that forwards as well. You can worry like your mother did, you know, you can you can just you know be a source of inspiration, maybe like your father was, or you can be the nourishing and nurturing like mother that loves everybody, for example. Do you know what I mean? You can,
Yes.
or you can be downtrodden and just keep playing that forward. Play the fears of your ancestry forwards, or the pearls of wisdom.
Yeah, so you have the power to select which parts of your lineage you would like to amplify and which parts you'd actually like to transform or say, this ends with me. And if I have a kid, this is not coming with me, or, I'm not going to keep putting this out into the world. But that's quite a active process to do that, right? So if you just hang back and do nothing and you don't do the inner work, it's highly likely that you are going to be perpetuating these things. Unless you, yeah, I mean, maybe there are some exceptions, but I don't know of any. I know that most people, you have to uninstall a lot of things that were installed without your knowing. And that's something that's confused me often, that I'm like, but I don't feel like I contributed to this being here. So how is it my responsibility to fix it? But at the end of the day, like, you're taking on more than just your one life, your one experience. You're working with with more than just your own challenges, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily your job to like fix what's happened down your ancestral line,
Mhm.
because those individuals, that's their karma. Like I've talked about this before, like karma meaning learning, understanding, taking responsibility, and taking action. Right? If it's got nothing to do with you,
Mhm.
you can't put that right. You can't correct it.
Okay.
It's not
Okay.
yours. You have no understanding of it, no awareness of where it's come from, those lifetimes that are, but you can choose not to play it forwards. If you know this has got nothing to do with me, this has been handed down to me, but it's got nothing to do with me, do nothing. Don't action it.
Mhm.
Do it differently. You like I do that thing where we clear the junk from the DNA, and we clear a lot of thought forms, and then that leaves you with a clear slate. And some of the things that have been handed down through our ancestry, we do pick up and start playing forwards because there's something for us to learn
Okay.
through that. And it might be as simple as, actually, this doesn't belong to me and I just need to put it down. Why am I even playing with this in the first place? Why am I sounding this forward? Why am I acting this out in my life? This, I'm, I'm here to find out actually my reason for living, the reason why I was born, my mission. Maybe you're not interested in your mission in life, but maybe you just want to do the things you love. So do them. You start paying more attention to that. Because this stuff, it doesn't need to go, it doesn't need to be played forwards if it doesn't belong to you. Now, there are people who come into this world whose job it is to siphon through what supports life and what doesn't in people's ancestry. And that's their job. So they'll get involved in that.
Yeah.
And that's what they do, and they do a beautiful job because it's helpful. And every and they do it in a certain way. It's like family constellations help people to realize what was actually going on, and it can really free up your own feelings around a belief that you have around a family member behaving in a certain way because you could never understand why they were the way that they were. And then you see it and you can drop it. There's no animosity there anymore. Does it make sense?
It does make sense. I have so many questions popping up as you're speaking. We can go in any number of directions that of the last one that came up as you just said this was how do you know if something is not yours? If this is hands off, this isn't for me. What is the difference between this is something to, work with or this is something to just let go or yeah, how do you make that distinction?
Well, often it just feels off. It's like I'm not like this, and I don't know why I've got this with me. How I am isn't like this, but still it's there. There's a there's a feeling that you have,
Mhm.
that it doesn't fit somehow. It doesn't feel right. Um, and it can be something that you just cannot wrap your mind around. It doesn't resonate in any way with you. You don't know why it's there. It cramps you, it stops you, you know.
Can you see this in the clients that you work with usually? Can you identify that sort of when you've tuned into somebody, or is that something that only the person can tell? If let's say I came to you and I asked you, like, I have this thing, would you be able to help me, get that clarity and say, like, this is not of you and this is of you and this is to work with? Or how would it work in that sense when you're supporting people with this kind of thing?
Well, I'd get you. I've got methods of getting you to tune into yourself,
Mm.
as you know. And usually there's a learned behavior that comes in where there's a family member that's talking to you, like you see them. And then it's a case of looking to see where you are in that picture and talking. They're talking. So if you set your intention to get to the cause of whatever it is that is blocking you and that's holding you back, like if it's come from you, you'll see yourself. You'll perceive yourself at some point. If it's learned, you'll see a family member
Mm.
that's telling you something, and at some point in our lives, we take it on in a very vulnerable place. Maybe we're open because we want to learn about something, and we get told like, "What's wrong with you? Are you stupid?" Because the parent might have got us at the wrong time, like, oh, they just haven't got time for this right now, because they've got a million and one other things that they've got to do. But the child doesn't know that, doesn't understand that, takes it personally. Mummy and daddy aren't getting on, maybe it's my fault. And these things we take on and we think it's ours, but it's not.
Mm.
And sometimes you can take things on a cellular level when your physical body is being formed in the womb. All the thoughts and feelings that the mother's having, what's going on with the father at the time, even of conception.
Mm.
I've worked with people where there's been certain beliefs that have come in, certain energies that have come in that have threaded through their entire life that's come at the point of their actual conception. But that's a whole nother arena. Maybe we can talk about that another time.
Maybe we can. It's very interesting that you talk about a family member being sort of a representative of a certain thought or a certain belief or a certain thing that you believe about yourself. I've noticed it in my own life that for certain areas of my life or certain, let's say, insecurities that I have, usually it's embodied by one person and another area would be embodied by another person. And that's a way for me to identify, like, how can this be of me if every time I think of this thing or every time this thing comes up, it's like I see the face of my insert family member here. But then when I think of something else, it's like insert family member here. So it's sort of a
Yeah,
something that I've started to notice that as soon as if I encounter something like that, I already know like this is not, this is something for me to actively do something and let go of because it's, I'm
mm,
carrying something with me that is not serving me or, not serving anyone. And probably the person who is the representative in my mind has no idea that they've taken on this role in my movie, to be that they're playing the bad guy in this movie. But yeah, I think
yeah.
people, it's very easy to believe it, right? It's very easy for people to think if I think it, it must be true. Oh, maybe that's a good question, maybe a fairly basic question, but um, talking about knowing when something is coming from your ego versus when something is coming from your soul. When it's something that's actually like an urge that's coming from this deep part of you, or maybe the divine part of you, how would you advise someone to actually know what's your ego telling you versus what is your soul or whatever other word connection to the
Okay,
divine is telling you?
so your soul supports life, it supports your expression, it supports the things that you love, your nature, your truth. It's progressive, it's expansive, and it really is about doing what you love. Um, but your ego is going to inhibit. It's going to stop a lot of things, or it's going to be overinflated and be, well, don't you know who I am? You need to respect me. Like the soul doesn't need to be famous. It doesn't need to be treated in a certain way. It just is, and it's a beautiful expression. It's like the sun, right? It's the sun. Like think of the sun that shines on everything, right? That's the nature of love with no conditions. It will shine on everything.
Mhm.
It will shine on a graveyard. It will shine on a newborn baby. It will shine on a serial killer. It will shine on everything. Right, but the ego will say no, 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 that's bad. I'm not going to shine on that. And you've done wrong. You must be punished. Or look at me, aren't I great? Like, isn't it? So you can differentiate between the ego and the soul and quite, love, supporting life and not really supporting life, constricting it and, you know, squashing it.
Yes.
So yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's a good
I
explanation.
mean, the other thing as well is I just wanted to add, because I was talking about family members, like most of our family members, they've not done anything wrong. They're just passing down what they were given. And if somewhere down the line, because of, I don't know, war or something, some traumatic event happened or catastrophe happened and an earthly event happened and lives were lost and it caused lots of stress and then we went into survival mode, there might have been a little bit of love that got lost there and got replaced by trauma or by pain, right? And that got passed on. And so something offset the life force and trauma and difficulty and hardship came in instead. And then that gets passed down. And it gets passed down through the lineage. And it's not that person's fault. It's
Yes.
nobody's fault. But the thing to remember is that, okay, I'm not getting what I needed from my close family because they couldn't give it. They didn't have it. It's not their fault, and I have not done anything wrong. But the ego can identify with that and think I'm a bad person and that they
Yes.
were wrong and that they're bad and there's evil in them. And there isn't necessarily. They just didn't have this to give. They've experienced something that they don't understand either. Or they were having a really good time living their life, being free, and then all of a sudden a baby came along and they weren't ready for it and they didn't know how to bring the baby up because maybe they were orphans, maybe they didn't have the upbringing that they needed when they were a child. And now what do? So they're playing a role that they don't know how to play.
Mhm, mhm.
Ah, that's not comfortable. Ah, it's not necessarily even their fault. But what do I do now? Oh, and then the child grows up and says, "You're a bad parent." And they're not necessarily, they just didn't know how to do it. They didn't know how to give you what you needed. They didn't have the resources available to them. All they had was pain and trauma and fear of this role of they didn't know how to play, you know? So there's many reasons why this stuff can get blocked for us. But at the end of the day, it's up to us to live in alignment
Yes.
with our stars and with our purpose. And when you're out of alignment, things go a little bit of mess, and that's when you can be living more in your ego world because
Mhm.
things don't flow, things don't. There's synchronizations don't happen. You don't meet the people you want to meet, and all of those kind of things. Everything's a little bit off. So, but when you're living in alignment, you're living in your vital energy and you're connected with your soul. You become more aware of things.
Absolutely. I can relate with both of those states, and I feel like most of us oscillate between the two of them. It's we had a, I mean, I think we can maybe wrap it up with a small funny anecdote about um, transcending the ego that we spoke about earlier. And you said to me that I asked you if you'd met anybody who'd transcended their ego, and then you said if you transcended your ego, you don't tell people about it. And that was such a funny little thing for me to consider that a lot of people, a lot of us, we're here a little bit, then we're there a little bit, then we're living from the soul, we're living from the ego, and of course we can try to spend as much time as possible connected to the soul, but ultimately we are human, and the majority of us here are going to have a little bit of both, right? It's not you
Yeah.
done, you do a certain amount of work and then well done, you're good to go. Like it's quite a
Well, I mean, yeah, what I mentioned was about the ascended masters as well. It's
mm,
like they're ascended masters, they're beings that have, yeah, they've transcended their ego and they're not human anymore. They're not informed, but they love us and they want to help us and they want us to be able to do the same and be free and empowered. And so, but most, yeah, I mean, I can't, I don't, have I met someone who's, transcended their ego? I don't know. I don't
mhm.
know. No, no, maybe, probably, most likely not. And if they've got to talk about it, I'd say nah. Just it's a work in progress.
Mm.
It's a work in progress. We can always create more of it, by identifying with the fact that we've transcended our ego. I've transcended my ego. There you go. Nothing
Oh,
wrong with
I've
me.
heard that too many times. Not always in service of the light, I would say.
Yeah, it's a work in progress
Yeah.
until, we keep working until we don't anymore. And once it's transcended, I'd say most of those beings leave. They're free. Yes, some come back and take on physical form, but they've got to be pretty amazing beings.
Mm. Well, that's
I'd like to meet one day.
a beautiful, beautiful note to leave this on. I will just say that please, if you're listening, ask questions, comment them, send them to Shakti. All of her Shakti's details are always linked under these videos. If you have questions, if you want us to talk about something else that we haven't mentioned, I mean, this is only the second one. We'd love to do that. But no, Shakti, do you want to add anything before we wrap it up?
Um, well, I mean, you know where to find me. Yeah, my website is going to be on there. I'm running a women's retreat in June called Awaken, and it's from the 15th to the 22nd of June. So anyone that's interested in that and learning more about the pearls of wisdom and little gems that we've got, like check it out on my website. Um, and obviously, I offer this to anyone who wants to go deeper into their own ascension and empowerment and freedom. Like, just drop me a line and talk to me about it. I offer courses, I give sessions, and it's my purpose in life to do what I do, and I feel really grateful that I'm actually able to do it. So yeah, that's what I'd add.
Wonderful. I can
Well,
only
thank
vouch
you.
for that. Thank you so much.
Thank
This
you.
was another beautiful, informative chat, and I'm already excited for the next one.
Me too.
Okay. Ciao.
All right.